So the Russo brothers have finally commented on the huge leaks that came out for Avengers Secret Wars / Avengers Doomsday. And there were also some pretty big leaks for the Fantastic Four as well. Now here's the deal. I've already seen a ton of comments online and nobody really believes them because these are the guys who said, no, the next Avengers movie after Infinity War is not called Avengers Endgame, and then months later they revealed that it was called Avengers Endgame. But here's the deal, I do believe that they are kind of somewhat telling the truth. They're partially lying, but I don't think they're telling us what the full situation actually is. But I'll explain everything that you need to know, and we're going to go over this really big article that The Hollywood Reporter did on the Russo brothers. And they reveal some pretty cool inside information about what they did at Marvel Studios with the Russo brothers to tell them which characters are available and how much they are going to cost for the next two Avengers films. Now this article is titled The Russo Brothers, Marvel's Money Minting Directors Reveal Their Secret Weapons. And there is a lot in this article about the Russo brothers' lives, how they came into Marvel Studios, how they came into filmmaking in general, stuff about their other projects. And if you want to read it, I highly recommend it. We're just going to cover the Marvel stuff in this video. And there's a lot, but let's first get started with those leaks. In this interview with The Hollywood Reporter, they were straight up asked, there was a leak of an Avengers concept art recently. Often, the final movie doesn't reflect that artwork. Should anyone be worried about being unwillingly spoiled? Joe Russo said no, because that artwork was not from Avengers Doomsday or Secret Wars. Anthony said, nothing spoiling in there. That's not our concept art. So if you notice right here, they're not actually saying that the concept art is fake because it's not fake. We know it's real. We know it's coming from a Marvel Studios artist. We know who did the work and we know that they work for Marvel. Now, them saying that it's not from Avengers Doomsday or Secret Wars, that is, again, like I said in the beginning, it's partially true. What Anthony says is a little bit more accurate when he says that's not our concept art, and that part is most likely true. We don't know exactly when the Russo brothers came on board with Marvel Studios, but we do know that it was Robert Downey Jr. who convinced them to do so. And Robert Downey Jr. recently revealed that it took him a year to convince the Russo brothers to come back. But the Russo brothers have also expressed that it's not that they came back because Robert Downey Jr. kept asking, or because Kevin Feige kept asking. It was because they finally found a story. They weren't going to come back unless they had a perfect story. And a year later, after Robert Downey Jr. initially tried to get them to return, they finally found that story. So although we're not exactly sure when they agreed to come back and sign, right now we're pretty sure it was within a year of the announcement that they were going to return and Robert Downey Jr. would return as Doom in Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars, which was revealed at San Diego Comic-Con in July of 2024. So to be safe, we'll give it a year time span. So somewhere between July 2023 and July 2024, the Russo brothers returned. Well, this concept art says that it comes from 2022, but that's when the concept art started. By the time the concept art was finished, it could have been years later, but the concept art was started before the Russo brothers got involved. So when Joe says that's not from Avengers Doomsday or Secret Wars, it's partially true, but partially a lie. It is from Avengers Secret Wars. It's just from whatever they previously had planned before the Russo brothers got on board. Then Anthony says that's not our concept art, which I do believe is accurate. That is not their concept art. This is what they were coming up with before the Russo brothers got on board. And we do know that when the Russo brothers came back, they decided to completely write their own scripts from scratch. So what's really going on here is that this concept art that leaked was real. It is real. This is real concept art designed for Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars for Marvel Studios. It was before the Russo brothers came in and they have made their own new story. So it might not have all of the same concepts in that story, but some of this art is probably still true because Doom, Robert Downey Jr.'s Doom, is still on board. So whatever Kevin Feige and the previous writers were working on with Robert Downey Jr.'s story as Doom, some of that is still going to stay because whatever they pitched Robert Downey Jr. in the beginning about him returning as Doom, he clearly loved that to be able to come back. And since he is the one who convinced the Russo brothers to return, on the premise that Robert Downey Jr. is playing Dr. Doom now, I'm sure that story is going to stay pretty similar to what Robert Downey Jr. imagined. So, will all of this concept art come true in the movies? No, but we knew that because it is concept art. But will the overall really big ideas of this concept art probably still happen? Most likely. In fact, the Russo brothers even recently said that they drew inspiration from both of the Secret Wars comic runs. So that tells us a lot as well, and we'll talk about that in just a bit. But first, thank you to Factor for sponsoring this video. If you have been following the channel, you know that I love Factor. And this year, they have been a big part of my New Year's resolution to try and eat healthier, plus trying not to go out for food too much this year as well. They also save you a ton of time with their chef-made gourmet meals that make eating, well, easy. Their meals are dietitian approved and ready to heat and eat in 2 minutes. Super convenient, super quick, plus they taste amazing. So if you're busy like me, it's perfect. Plus, if you're trying to lose some weight as well, it's even more perfect. You can lose up to 8 pounds in 8 weeks with Factor Keto meals. This is based on randomized controlled clinical trial with Factor Keto. Results vary upon a diet and exercise, of course, but they've been really helping me with my weight loss. They taste great and you have so many options. You have 40 options across 8 dietary preferences on the menu each week. And it's easy to pick meals tailored to your goals, whether that's calorie restriction, protein, keto. They've got what you need, plus wholesome smoothies, grab and go snacks, breakfast, and more. So if you're trying to hit your weight goals this year, Factor can definitely help. And if you go to factormeals.com/factorpodcast, you can get 50% off right now, or use code FACTORPODCAST to get 50% off. That's factormeals.com/factorpodcast, or use code FACTORPODCAST for 50% off. So the Russo brothers already stating that they've drawn inspiration from both Secret Wars runs means that there's going to be some type of battle world and probably some type of God Emperor Doom. In both runs, he takes the power/powers of the Beyonder or Beyonders and essentially becomes a god. These are probably the key inspirations that they're going to take from, especially since it's Robert Downey Jr. returning as Doom and he was the one pitching them to come back to Marvel, probably on the premise that he's going to eventually become God Emperor Doom. Also, Marvel Studios in the MCU recently has been about incursions. Those are going to be a really big thing. So we're assuming that eventually all the incursions happen and eventually we're left with just Battleworld. So the concept art still is a decent example of what we could see, and we will see some of it in the movie, just not all of it. But they never said that it was fake, just that it wasn't theirs. But also at the same time, they could still be lying about that. It very well could be their concept art. It could definitely be what they are using, but of course they're not going to come out and say, oh yeah, all those leaks were real. That's going to be what you see. There's really no scenario where they can say that. So there is actually a chance that we still could see all of this show up. But for the sake of not being disappointed and leveling our expectations, let's say maybe 20 to 30% of this will show up in the movie. Most likely all of which has to do with Doom is going to show up. Now, the article mentioned something really interesting. They said, with your previous Avengers movies, there was a now famous set of baseball cards with a card for every Marvel actor. And they included how many movies the actors were contracted for. Was there an equivalent on these movies? How do you figure out who is in these movies? Anthony Russo said, yes, we continue to use the baseball cards. Joe Russo said, now they have magnets on them so we can put them on a board and look at them. It's the only way to keep track of the amount of characters that we're working with. Anthony says, and as far as how do we look at who's in the movies, it's just a long creative process of exploring where we want to take the story. What is the most surprising and exciting area for us to push into? And which characters help us in that effort? So somewhere right now exists a board that has baseball cards of all of the Marvel actors with how much is left in their contract, how many movies, and how much they cost as well. I would really love to see this board. I think it would be really cool. Plus, it would pretty much tell us who is going to be in the movie. And right now, I'm assuming that everybody in the MCU currently is on that board, plus a lot of other people, other actors who aren't in the MCU are probably on that board as well, who have already talked to Kevin Feige about coming in for specific cameos. Now, the last Marvel question that they were asked in this video was, Avatar 2, Deadpool and Wolverine, and Spider-Man No Way Home show that people still will show up to the theater for these massive movies. But given changes to the theatrical landscape since Endgame, are you approaching these Avengers movies any differently? And Joe Russo said, "We can't control the economic environment. We can't control what's happening in the world around the time of the release. We can't control the audience's desire to leave their homes or not. All we can do is make the best movie possible in the hope that it excites them." And in fact, in this article, they reveal that they have essentially everything at their disposal to make the best movie ever. The Hollywood Reporter said, "In the years since Endgame became one of the biggest movies of all time, you've gone on to focus on AGBO, which is a major company now. And AGBO is the Russo brothers' own production company that they owe." In the article, they say, "Doomsday is the first MCU movie that you and AGBO will produce. On practical terms, how does that change the equation from your previous MCU movies?" And Joe says, "It just involves more of the infrastructure from AGBO and all the things that we've built at the company to help us as filmmakers, the personal infrastructure, as well as the technological advancements from our innovation team." Anthony Russo said, "We're just excited to bring the storytelling tools and techniques that we've developed at AGBO over the past few years to our work at Marvel." So right now, the Russo brothers have everything at their disposal to make Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars the best possible movies that they can. And it seems like they are literally doing everything in their power to make this happen, to make these two movies absolutely the best they can be, which is just fantastic to hear. So a lot of great things in this article. If you want to learn more about the Russo brothers, go check out the full thing. But in the meantime, I still expect that Doomsday scene that we saw to pretty much happen in Avengers Secret Wars. But go ahead and let me know your thoughts about all of this, what the Russo brothers said, in the comments down below. Do you believe them or not? Or partially, like I said. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest Marvel news, rumors, or leaks. Please don't forget to like this video, and you can also find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. As always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.